So just quickly to kind of recap the Idaho game, start off, thought it was a really gritty performance by our team, down 17-7 in the third quarter. Come back and make some plays and then swell up when we needed to on defense. I thought, with the exception of probably three things, our inability to secure the edge of the defense early in the game. They had one route combination that was attacking a specific coverage that we were in that we did not do a great job of adjusting to. But other than that, I thought we played a really solid defensive football game. I think our defensive line, harassed Mason Petrino. I think we had 6 hits on the quarterback, 11 hurries. So I mean, he was running around, and to his credit, made some plays. Some of those were high-risk plays that he made, but nonetheless, he was able to make some plays. But I do think that our ability to affect him and get him off his spot was a critical aspect for us. Troy had actually had probably his best week throwing the ball, and that was not something he did well on Saturday. And really, in the second half, we kind of made a conscious decision rather than trying to throw the quick game, and because they were playing a lot of off coverage, that should have been available to us, and we just weren't accurate in doing that, that we were probably better off throwing the ball deep, because if you're 50-50 on a hitch and you're 50-50 on a post, take the post. And so we were a little bit more aggressive in our play calling, and we did hit one down the field to Lance, and that set up a score. And so I thought that was a real positive for us. I think in terms of our internal players of the week, Grant Collins probably played his best game of the year, led our team in tackles. I thought played with a lot of confidence and poise in the middle of that defense, did a nice job there. And so he was recognized as our defensive player of the week. Lance McCutcheon, led us in receiving yards and receptions, and did a nice job on the perimeter blocking, and had the one big play that, as I said, set up a score. So we rewarded Lance with recognizing him as our offensive player. And then for the second time in 3 games, James Campbell is our special teams player. And so James is certainly becoming a guy that is doing a nice job for us, in particular on covering punts. And so excited to see how he continues to progress in terms of helping us with our kicking game. And so that was kind of the deal in the Idaho game. And like I said, a hard-fought, gritty win. Proud of the way our guys responded. And now it's on to a big challenge at Weber State. And so when I look at Weber State, I think they're a very interesting team. I think they have an elite defense right now. Probably more look like a Mountain West defense than they do a Big Sky defense. They are big. They have great team speed, extremely athletic, and a lot of experience. And so, when you start with those guys, you start up front, 94 All-American D linemen, but they rotate a lot of guys up there, and they've got some good players. It's not just him. They've got a lot of good players on their defensive line. They're active, they're physical, they're long. 58 might be one of the more physical players in the country. Very, very good football player, another All-American candidate who I think he can take over a game from an inside linebacker position. I don't think there's very many guys that can do that. I just don't. And I think he's one of them, and that's how physical and how active he is. 45, who's right next to him, is probably overshadowed a little bit by 58, but 45 is a very, very good player also, all-conference, all-American type candidate. And then probably their best guy in the back end, number 2, really, really good post safety, physical player, breaks well on the ball, active in everything he does. They're number 2 in the nation in turnover margin, and that's not because they're taking care of the ball well, because they're giving it away at a pretty good clip, but that tells you, 11 fumbles recovered and 9 interceptions. So I think they forced 13 fumbles, they've recovered 11 of them, and they've got 9 interceptions. And so they've also had 4 non-offensive touchdowns. They've only scored 14 touchdowns on the year. 4 of them are by the defense or the special teams, and several more have been set up in the kicking game and with great defensive play, whether it be the turnovers or pinning them back. And they've been dominant, absolutely dominant on defense and in the kicking game, and that's the recipe for them to be successful. Offensively, transition into a new quarterback. I think the guy that's probably stands out to me the most on the offensive side of the ball right now for them is Josh Davis, the running back. Very, very productive, 603 yards rushing through 5 games or 6 games, whatever it is for them right now. He's very similar in style to Isaiah, very hard physical runner, not an overly big guy, about 195 pounds, but he breaks a lot of tackles and is a guy that, they're committed to running the football. They have an excellent offensive line. They got 55. Some of the people I talked to say that guy's potentially as high as 3rd or 4th round draft pick just because of his size and his productivity over the time that he's had there, and he kind of anchors their offensive line, but they're huge. They're big up front. They're physical. Their tight ends are big and physical. They play a lot of 12 personnel, and like I said, they're committed to running the ball, and then when they don't do that, they're going to take shots down the field. And, got Cooley, a freshman that's been a really productive player for him right now. He's their leading receiver, number 85. But the guy you always got to be aware of is Rashid Shaheed, number 22. He's a home run threat, not just on offense, but in the kicking game as well, as both a kick returner and a punt returner. And in fact, Davis had a punt return for a touchdown last week against Eastern Washington. I mean, a very interesting game to watch. Clearly, Eastern's not the same team without Gage, and he did not play against Weber State. They had 2 field goals. That was I'm wondering when the last time Eastern Washington didn't score an offensive touchdown. I mean, that's a long time. And then really, I think within about 4 minutes of the first half, Weber scores their one offensive touchdown, and then Davis takes a punt back. And it was 14-3 at half. That was all the scoring with the exception of a field goal for Eastern in the second half. So very much a defensive battle, and points are going to be coming at a premium. And hopefully that's going to be on both sides. But I think that's kind of what I see with those guys. I think one thing about them is their team speed stands out. And where that really has an impact is on special teams. And they make a lot of big plays in the kicking game. And so I think they're really well coached in that phase, and they're a very, very physical group. So, we're going to have a challenge, and should be a great opportunity for our team, and I know we'll be excited to play.
You mentioned some of the explosive nature of special teams. I think combined between special teams and defense, they've scored more than half their points like that. Mm-hmm. Like you said, also some of their offensive stuff set up by takeaways in special teams. What have you thought of their ability to get by, even though they're not really manufacturing that many points offensively?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're turning the ball over, forcing turnovers the way they are, that becomes a big extension of your offense. I mean, they're playing on short fields. They can take it to the house, whether it's on an interception return. They've had 2 fumble returns for touchdowns. They actually don't have an interception return for a touchdown, but they have set up some scores off of that. And then I mentioned the 2 special teams touchdowns, but that also is kind of misleading because it's really more points than that because of they get a long kickoff return, it might go down to the 25-yard line. Even if they don't do anything, they're in range to get points. And so they score or set up a lot of scores on both defense and special teams, and it becomes really a big extension of their offense, quite honestly. And they don't have to take a lot of chances on offense because they know they don't need a lot of points. I mean, you can just see Jay's attitude. I mean, it's like, he'll take some chances maybe sometimes that you probably wouldn't normally take in some games, because he's so confident in the defense's ability to kind of withstand anything the offense is going to give him. And the defense, obviously, they step up and they take pride in that, and they continue to force 3 and outs and take the ball away.
Knowing points might be at a premium, I guess, how might that affect some of the approach to the game?
Well, I think we've got to maximize our possessions, and that doesn't mean we have to score. That means that one of the things that stands out about this group is even though their offensive production isn't great, they hold on to the ball. They have I think they're right around 31 and a half minutes a game that they're holding the ball. So their time of possession, not only are they taking the ball away a lot from the offense, but they're also holding it a lot on their offense. And so what I mean by maximizing possessions is keeping our defense fresh, stay away from the 3 and outs. If you do have a 3 and out, it doesn't need to be a 20-second possession where you throw the ball 3 times. Use the play clock to our advantage and be smart about how we take our shots. And I think that's going to be, that's the game within the game in terms of the game management part of it. And when I talk about maximizing our possessions, like I said, I'm not just talking about taking advantage of scoring opportunities. I'm also talking about keeping the ball away from them.
How much they turn the ball over? Are you emphasizing ball security in practice at all this week? Or
Yeah, we always talk about that. We've been pretty good about not fumbling the ball around here, and I think a big reason for that is because we do put a big emphasis on it. If you come and watch us practice, we do a ball security circuit every Tuesday that's been emphasized around here for a while, and so that doesn't mean that those aren't going to come, but we definitely emphasize that. We make them aware of it. These kids do a great job from Weber of getting their hands on the ball when they're tackling. One of the reasons why they force so many turnovers is they run to the ball. I mean, it's not just the first guy there. You're going to get it's kind of just bang, bang, bang. I mean, there's a lot of bodies flying around you, and so you've got to have a heightened sense of awareness about taking care of the football.
You guys have been good on special teams so far. So how would you evaluate where you guys are at?
I don't think we've been good on kick coverage. I mean, I think that's probably the one thing that we have not been good at is our kickoff coverage. And, we better have a plan, because we get 22 the ball, he's going to hurt you if we don't cover it well. And so that's obviously something that is important to us and that we want to do a great job on. And we've got to maybe move some pieces around. Sometimes it's personnel, sometimes it's just not doing the right things, and so we've got to make sure we've got the right guys in the right spots to be able to execute in that phase, because we can't afford to spot these guys 7 points on a kickoff return. Or a punt return for that matter. And I think Jared does a nice job of moving the ball around. We found some guys, kind of like I talk about, like James Campbell, that have done an awesome job as gunners for us, and I think that's going to be a big part of what to pay attention to in this game from a fan standpoint.
You mentioned Campbell's emergence on special teams. I know you loved his speed when he first came here. What does it take for him to get to the point to be such a good punt gunner?
Well, I think he's just bought into his role. I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, poor James, he got here, had a knee deal when he was here, and then I think he had his tonsils taken out, and then he's kind of had one thing after another, and finally got healthy and has acclimated to being here at Montana State from Florida, and has bought into his role, and he's really starting to embrace that and play at a high level.
Braden Campbell playing some linebacker against Idaho. Is that something specific for Idaho, or is that a role that?
I think we've got to get more athletic at the linebacker spot, and that's one of the ways that we can do that is get a guy down there that's played. Now, in Braden's defense, he was still mixing back and forth between Sam linebacker and safety this week, and I think he just was more comfortable still playing in the back end. And so Jacob Hadley came in, got nicked up a little bit, but played some good reps for us and probably played as well as he's played this year. And then Blue, we're kind of working him back into the lineup, but he's got a 5-pound club on one hand and a knee brace on the other, and that kid's tough as nails. But we've got to kind of get him back into the fold there and get him ready to go with Sam a little bit as well.
To be able to hold a team like Eastern to 6 points, I mean, with or without Gage, what does that say just about the way they?
Without Gage is a huge difference. Let me just say that. Did you watch the game?
I saw highlights.
Yeah. It's not the same offense. I mean, it's.
They thought he was going to play too. You could tell.
Yeah, they were ready for all the quarterback run stuff and all that stuff. So it's not even close to the same offense. The passing game was almost negligible, and that's obviously what they've built that thing on. And so they had some Q runs. I think if Eastern had that guy in that system for, he's been there going on 3 years now. Came out the same year that Chris Murray did, but that's more his skill set. He's not really a pocket guy, and I think that I'm not taking anything away from Weber State. They were dominant, absolutely dominant. But that's if you were to say what would be the one team that if you took their starting quarterback away, it would impact them the most, you could probably make an argument for here or there, but it'd probably be Eastern Washington, and then you'd probably say Cal Davis and Idaho State because of the nature of what they do on offense. Those three teams, if you take their guy away, it's going to have a dramatic impact. And quite honestly, it's not just in terms of the production on offense. You got a guy who's been the man there for 4 years, and when they're going into a hostile environment to play a very physical defense, there's a psychological impact on that as well.
Before the start of the season, you kind of alluded to, maybe not feeling a ton of expectation, with the preseason poll, not to finish that great. Do you feel any more hype or expectation now that, with the season going the way it has?
We got a lot of football left to be played. I mean, there's only 3 Big Sky games that have been played, and the most important one that we play is on Saturday. And so, expectations, preseason polls is kind of, let's give somebody something to talk about in July, I guess. But, I mean, clearly the media and the coaches don't think that we're ready to compete for a conference championship. And that's been played out over and over again. We get next to nobody on all conference teams, whether that's postseason or preseason, and we were picked to be in the bottom third of the league. And I think we're a work in progress. Do I think we've arrived? No, but I think we're a better football team than perhaps maybe some people thought. But it doesn't matter what I think. We got to go play it and prove it on Saturday.
One more special teams question for me. You guys had the pick and then went 3-and-out against Idaho, but you're able to get 3 points from Tristan. How big of a difference is that?
Yeah, it's night and day in terms of my level of confidence in him and our teams. And Tristan has earned that. He's been consistent for us and has been a guy that we've been able to count on. The one that I went back and forth on was at the end, and when the wind was at our back, and we went to quarter, and then ended up with that 4th down. Because he had even told me before the game, if we're going to the blockhouse, I got to be here. Because once the ball got up in the air, the wind was pretty stiff. And it was kind of one of those deals like, should I let him try it? Should I not let him try it? And then every, typical Montana day, every 5 seconds the wind would pick up and you're like, no, yes, no. And so that was probably one that if we were going the other way, we would have kicked it.
What have you noticed from the tight ends block when quarterback scrambles? Obviously that's coming down.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. It's within our kind of our DNA run stuff too. I mean, Curtis Amos in particular has been awesome this year. I mean, he is really things that nobody's probably going to notice except for us when we go and break down the film. But I mean, he's been as good a, you know, whether it's in line or as a wing guy for us. I mean, he's been really, really good, and Sully's been really, really good. And that wasn't always his MO. He was kind of a receiver who we would ask to do some tight end things, and then, you know, you bring Wilson Brought in the game, and he's like having an extra offensive lineman. And so I think our tight ends have been, you know, really, really critical for us.
Curtis, is there different stuff you guys are asking to do, or has it just been a matter of him progressing?
I think it's progressing, yeah. You know, I didn't even realize this. He told me this like 2 years ago. He's like, I came here as a defensive lineman, you know, and then was more of a slot receiver again, and then we said, well, you got to put some weight on and embrace this physicality, and he was good last year, and he's been really good this year.
You were really high on Tyrone, obviously, during camp. So through half the season, what kind of a year do you think he's?
I think he's having an all-conference type year. I think he's at times been unblockable and plays the run equally as well as he does the pass, and that's something that not a lot of guys that are edge guys do. I think one of the guys that's really benefited from him being able to do his job at such a high level is a guy like Bryce Stirk. You know, he gets a lot of single opportunities, and he's got good speed and can chase guys down, but a lot of times it's because 57's flushing him. Another guy that, you know, not to take anything away from Tyrone, but another guy that I think has been playing at a very, very, very high level the last 3 weeks is Derek Marks. I've seen a noticeable increase in his production and in his play, and I think that D-line room has all kind of pushed each other to rise together, if that you kind of get what I'm talking about right there. And there's a lot of competition in there. Those guys, I mean, they're hunting. You know, Mason was running for his life a lot on Saturday, and so those guys are all about trying to get after that quarterback. And but it starts by them doing their job on first and second down, and we're going to be challenged in doing that. We're going to have to fit the run really well this Saturday.
How would you say Casey and Ruben have progressed as quarterbacks since maybe the start of the season?
You know, they're very different players. Very different players. Ruben is very cerebral. Really is, you know, played football since he was this big. I think his dad was his coach all the way through, and is kind of a football junkie and very accurate, savvy kid. Can get himself out of trouble with his feet. Not afraid to run some of the quarterback run game. Has done an awesome job. He's kind of been our primary scout team quarterback, and so he does a great job of kind of simulating what we're going to see from the opposing offenses. And then Casey is just a big. I mean, they call him Big Ben. I mean, you know, I mean, he's got some arm talent like nobody's business. He played smaller school ball, so you know the progression to playing Division I football has been a little different. But I've seen a noticeable change in terms of his preparation. You know, I mean, he's much more. I think he's understanding what it means to be a student of the game. And the guy that's probably mentored him the most has been Tucker Rovick. You know, and kind of know that I made that mistake when I was a freshman. Here's how you need to do this, and those guys have done a nice job.
How do you just kind of feel overall about the room, you know, depth at this point?
We got 2 true freshmen and a converted linebacker, so I probably felt better about depth in that position at some other time. But I think Bob's done a nice job of working with those guys and getting them where they need to be. Obviously, if we had Tucker, I'd feel much better about things. But those freshmen will be ready to go. You know, we're not going to ask them to do everything in the world. We're just going to say, hey, this. You know, that's one of the things I ask them okay, I want to see the plays that you like. Let's go through them. What are the plays that you like? So we know if we do get into a situation where we've got to play them, we're kind of putting them in a position where they're comfortable with what we're doing. And you know, having a veteran offensive line and you know, a guy like Isaiah. I mean, how about Isaiah? The guy didn't even practice last week. I mean, and then he's still running like that. I mean, he's not healthy, and he does everything he can. He'll sacrifice anything for this team. I mean, it's impressive to see a young kid like that not be selfish. What do I got to do? What do you need me to do? I'll know it mentally. I'll take care of the ball. You know, and I mean, we ran a draw, backed up, and Sonny Holland in the first half, and he's blocking a senior linebacker, and like he'd done it all week. You know, and so I mean, there's a lot of guys that are stepping up and owning their roles around here.
Last year when Weaver got in trouble, they could always just throw the ball at the tight end.
Yeah.
Do they look different now?
They do. And the other thing is on short yardage, I don't remember the quarterback's name, number 11. Yeah, he was a good runner, and he made a lot of things happen for him in the red zone and on short yardage. And Davis is a kind of their go-to guy in those situations now, but you know that +1 run game is a problem. as we've shown. I mean, it's not like people didn't know 15 was going to run the ball, so it's just hard because you've got an extra body, you create an extra gap, and they did that a lot with Cantwell last year.
When Idaho failed that fourth down, then Troy, I mean, we talked about the momentum after the game, but just his ability to see that and make that play in that moment, I mean, what can you say to Stan?
Yeah, well, you look at it on film, and it looks like he's going to get the ball stripped out of his hand. I mean, 18 and beat Mitch around the edge, and he's kind of raising up, and you're waiting for that ball to come, tomahawk to come down, and I'd love to take credit. I told him it's always the boundary B gap if you want to escape, and that's where he hit. So, but I don't think I can. I think he just was, just playing ball, and it opened up, and he didn't see anybody, and that was probably one of the easier runs he had that day.
During the bye week, you talked about not rising to a certain level against the top echelon, like South Dakota State, Eastern Washington. So this is another one of those moments, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and we're going to continue to have those. It's, I think Idaho State the following week will be that way, and so I mean, it's just another opportunity to go compete and measure ourselves and see where we're at. I mean, like I said, the internal expectations are that we compete. That's probably the frustrating thing about South Dakota State in particular was, that was not a competitive day for us. I mean, we didn't go put our best foot forward, and hey, there's good football teams. Everybody has good players, and you're going to lose some games. We're not at the point right now where we can say, hey, we're going to go run the table. But I think we're building a good program here. We've got a good foundation. We've got good young players that are learning how to compete, finish games, and that ultimately that process of going through those things is going to result in those victories. And so it's just another chance to go play a really good football team and see where we're at.
Do you talk about the last trip down there? Or?
No. I mean, I don't. There's some guys that are here, but there are not very many, So our senior class is so small that, it's funny because Zach, we do a pool workout once we kind of halfway through the year, so we're doing a pool workout yesterday, and Zach's like, what are we wearing? What did we wear last time? Don't wear that. I'm like, I don't remember. So I said, these are new jerseys. But anyway, yeah, that's always, it's funny how you can get scarred by some of that, but we're staying in a different place, and we're going to operate the trip a little bit differently, and, so they have different players, we have different players. It's a new day. I just wish it wasn't 4 o'clock because we're driving. So.
Any other superstitions the team has?
Everybody has superstitions. Bob Cole in particular would be like ridiculously superstitious. But I think everybody kind of has their routine, like, oh, I did this last week, so I'm going to do it again or this is what I ate. So, I think everybody's kind of, probably in sports in general, I think a lot of people are like that.
How much respect do you have for just the job that Jay has done?
Yeah, I've mentioned it, numerous times, and it's not just, the job that he's done coaching the team, but, going through some of the things that he's had to go through personally and being able to continually focus on, making those young men as good as he can make them. He's got a really good staff. That's a good situation there because they've decided that football is important to them, and they've invested in football, and you can see the fruits of their labor in that regard. And I just, he's a good person. He's a good coach. Does things the right way. Treats people with dignity and respect. Recruits hard. All the things that you respect about a man, and that's, I hold him in high regard.
You mentioned last week you thought it was going to be a war. This week probably the same. What do you think? I mean, there's so many styles in this team, but 2 straight we get play physical games.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I knew, and I mentioned this in the press conference last Monday. I just knew how Idaho was going to bring. I mean, I've been there as a coach when you're going back home or you're going into a situation, and then when it's not just the head guy, but it's all these other guys on the staff, and they wanted to get that taste out of their mouth from the Idaho State game, and you could listen to how much they had invested in this game simply by hearing Paul's post-game comments. You could hear it, and there was kids on the field in tears like it was their last game, and you knew that they had put everything they had into that week. And we got their best, and we responded, and I think that says a lot about our team. And so we have to be willing to do the same thing this week. We have to be willing. I mean, this is a defending conference champion. This is a team that was this far away from potentially playing for a national championship a year ago, and they return I think the best defense in the FCS. I haven't seen anybody better.